Yeah, sure. That would make it easy, wouldn't it? Where are you? Make co-host. Okay. So for our new members, this is the fun that happens sometimes with technology when we're getting started, but we've worked everything out. So since it's 6:02 and this is the first meeting of the year, what we typically do is elect a chair and vice chair. But what I'm going to suggest we do is maybe some introductions so everybody can get to know each other. And then we will do our election of chair and vice chair. So I'll go first and then I'll call on people and we'll go from there. So good evening, everybody. My name is Derek O'Shea. I'm the acting deputy city clerk with the city of Kingston. I'm filling in tonight for Elizabeth Fawcett, who will be the clerk for the committee. The person who is the clerk for the committee, we are your number one resource for anything related to the committee itself. We will be sending out agendas, minutes, all communications, and keeping you apprised of anything to do with the committee's functioning itself. But for things related specifically to the world of rural affairs or anything rural in the city of Kingston, that would be my colleague Tracy Snow, who by segue, I will ask Tracy to introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tracy Snow. I'm the Manager of Rural Economic and Community Development for the City of Kingston and support a lot of the work in regards to the rural strategy and look for your guidance and resources and collaboration to help support rural in the City of Kingston.
Excellent. Thank you, Tracy. Next, I'm going to pick on the elected members of council on the committee. I'm going to go to the experienced member of the committee, Councillor Oosterhoff. If you'd like to introduce yourself. I think we all probably know who you are, though, at this point.
Yeah, I'll say good evening to everybody. Great to have Rural Advisory back on track. And I definitely want to say reach out to the new members, to Eric and Jacqueline, and even to Dawn. Dawn, is this your first meeting, Dawn Amos?
It is, yes, it is.
Amos. So, and I just want to say it out loud because I really want to. Charles, you're back on track. So great. And if I'm missing anybody, I don't see Wayne Jackson here. I actually know Wayne, but I don't see him. Is he a member of the board, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, Councillor. He's actually here. He's calling in tonight, so he won't show up in the participants unless he's actually speaking. So sure. I'll give him a chance to introduce himself shortly.
Yes. Well, anyways, as Councillor, I'm really delighted. It's one of my favorite committees as we, just get involved in the work that we are able to as a committee, and just look forward to getting to know you all and having a great year together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next, I'll go to Councillor Amos.
Thanks, Derek. Appreciate that. So I'm the councillor for Portsmouth District, and if you're wondering why is an urban councillor sitting on rural advisory, I ran an operational farm or a hobby farm for a number of years in Harrowsmith. I did that for 10, 12 years and lived in Inverroy before that for a number of years. So I actually have a very strong rural background, and recently moved into the city when I met my lovely wife. So she pulled me into the city, but my roots are very strong and rural, and I look forward to working with the community. It's a very exciting and passionate part of my life.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Amos. I'm going to go to some of our returning committee members. I'll go with our past chair, Allison, and ask Allison to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the new committee members, and thanks for coming back on to the ones who have decided to return. This is my second term serving on this committee, and as Derek mentioned, I served as the chair the last time. My husband Greg and I own Sun Harvest Greenhouses and located in Glen Burnie, so we're in the Countryside District north of the 401 on Division Street, along with our sons Brody and Kieran. And yeah, it's a great committee, and I think we're very fortunate to have the skill set of Tracy Snow and being bolstered this committee for the first time ever with some staff, dedicated staff support, and look forward to working together with all of you.
Excellent. Thank you, Allison. Next, I'll go to another returning member, Charles Foreman.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the new members as well. My wife and I run a cash crop farm and greenhouse in Brewers Mills Road, so northeast corner of Pittsburgh Township, and looking forward to the new year.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll go to our new members now. First on my list is Jacqueline.
Hi, everyone. Jacqueline Galitza, happy to be here. I live in Glen Burnie, so south of Unity Road, but north of Burbrook. So this is rural Kingston, where my family and I moved in 2018, actually. I am an assistant professor at Queen's University there in the School of Nursing, so I am a registered nurse as well. My research focuses on in cancer survivorship, but particularly on the needs of rural dwelling cancer survivors. And so that's where some of my work, my research work has been carried out. Myself, I grew up north of Havelock, so I am a country girl from central rural Ontario. So happy to be here and contribute however I can.
Excellent. We're very happy to have you. Next, I will go to Eric. Oh, I believe you are on mute right now, Eric. There we go. Oh, we're still not hearing you. I don't know if your audio is connected. Nope, nothing.
I don't see his mute icon.
No, I think it's just he's unmuted, but it might not be picking up the headphones. So what you can try and do, Eric, is if you look at the mute icon, the little arrow, and make sure it's connected to the microphone and the speaker you have. If not, you can always try entering or leaving the meeting and coming back in. So maybe what we'll do for a moment while Eric works on that is we'll go to our next committee member, Wayne Jackson. So I'll just send the request for Wayne to unmute and we'll see if he can be connected. And Wayne, if you are listening as well, you can unmute yourself via phone by pressing star and then 6 is how you can unmute yourself. The fun of figuring everything out on the first night, right? And maybe this will influence some of people's decisions when it comes to our future meeting formats. So, oh, I think Wayne, you appear to be unmuted. So go ahead, Wayne.
I guess I am on board.
You are.
Yes. I'm in Joyceville. Actually, our address is Seeley's Bay. So we've been here for 48 years. We normally came from way back from Wolf Island, so it's been a transition from the island to the mainland. I've pretty well farmed all of my life, and so we've been in dairy, we've been in beef, and so now I'm somewhat semi-retired, but I'm really like to be active in the community. So I feel that I have something to offer to the Rural Committee. I'm not sure what right at this point because I am new, and so I'm on a bit of a learning curve. But anyway, I welcome all of those, and I appreciate the opportunity to be to the service of the City of Kingston.
Great. Thank you very much, Wayne. I think, Eric, it looks like you are connected now. So if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself. No, we're still not getting anything. Maybe try leaving the meeting and then coming back in if that would work for you.
Derek, what about disconnecting the headset?
That might also work too. I can't quite tell what Eric has done since we can't hear him, but we can all throw out some ideas and see what works. Maybe, I don't know if you have an ability to just use like if you're on a laptop with a microphone and the speaker array that's there. We'll let you know if we start hearing you though. So we'll give this another minute or two. Okay. So we'll take a brief pause, and then once Eric's back, he can at least hear us and then participate in the voting for chair and vice chair.
I know Derek doesn't like me talking, but I'm really happy that all of you are here. This is going to be a great year. Sorry, Derek, I couldn't help.
No, that's okay, Tracy. Maybe what we can do, because I'll put it out there and just see. Normally, when we elect the chair and vice chair, this is I'll I'll go ahead and start it. We can at least then see if there's any volunteers, and then if Eric wishes to volunteer. But I think I have a guess. Most first-time members usually don't want to volunteer right away. So maybe I'll ask, is anybody willing to volunteer, or are there any nominations for chair? Councillor Oosterhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'd like to nominate Allison Shannon for chair.
All right, Allison, do you accept the nomination? I think I can read lips. I saw yes.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Is there anybody else who would be interested in the position of chair? I'm not seeing anybody, so I'll ask, is anybody willing to second Allison as the chair of the committee? Just raise your hand. Okay, Charlie, perfect. And we'll call a vote on all of them. We'll ask right now, though, first, before we get to that, is anybody interested in volunteering for the position of vice chair? I think actually, hold on a second. We'll see. I think we've got another phone call joining us. Eric, are you there via phone? Maybe not.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Is this Eric?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. We can hear you. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So I am new to the committee. I'm actually just moved to.
Oh, I think we've lost you again.
Is that better? Can you?
Yeah,
can you
we can hear now. Nope. And I think we've lost you again.
Come. How's that?
Okay, that's better. Go ahead.
All right. So I just moved to Kingston 5 or so years ago, and we are on just on the north side of 401, close to Highway 38, and setting up a farm. So my background is entrepreneurship, small businesses, and we're going to be setting up a farm business here. So it's my first time being involved in a committee like this. So looking forward to learn and see how I can help the city grow.
Excellent. We're happy to have you. And one thing I might suggest, Eric, is if you'd like, you should be able to log in on your computer as well. So you'll be able to at least see us as well as the presentation that Tracy has, but you can listen, and if you want to participate, you can talk via phone. So we'll give that a shot. You should be able to come in under both. So with that, I will go back again. Do we have any volunteers or nominations for the position of vice chair? Allison.
I wish to nominate Councillor Oosterhoff.
Excellent. Councillor Oosterhoff, do you accept?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, I'll ask, is there anybody seconding the motion for Councillor Oosterhoff as vice chair? Councillor Amos. And we now have we'll do two motions, one vote. So electing Allison Shannon as chair of the committee and Councillor Oosterhoff as the vice chair. So I'll call the vote. So all in favor by show of hands? And any opposed? Okay, and that carries. And what I'll do now is turn things over to Allison as the chair. So Allison, go ahead.
Thanks, Clerk O'Shea. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. On my computer, it says at 6:15. First item of business is the approval of the agenda, which was forwarded to you last week, I believe. And could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you, Jacqueline. Seconder. Thank you, Charlie. Any discussion on that? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Hands raised. Opposed? Seeing none, thank you. That's carried. Item number 4, the confirmation of the minutes from, excuse me, the December 5th meeting, which was the final meeting of the previous Rural Advisory Council, again, held in electronic virtual format. Those minutes were circulated to each of the committee members prior. Hopefully you have had an opportunity to review them. I'd like someone to make a motion that the minutes of the Rural Advisory Committee meeting held Monday, December 5th be approved. So moved by Councillor Oosterhoff, seconded by Charlie Foreman. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise a hand. Okay, thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Is there anyone that needs to recluse themselves from the meeting for some reason that they can't participate due to conflict? All right. Let's move right on into delegations then. Agenda item number 6. Are there any delegations? Clerk O'Shea or?
No, there are not tonight.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Briefings, agenda item number 7. And at this point in time, I would like to invite Tracy Snow, who, as you've met earlier, the manager of the Rural Economic and Community Development, to speak to the committee. She'll have 10 minutes, but unlimited time for questions, folks, and which will be questions put forth by the committee only. So without further ado, Tracy, go ahead.
You just need to unmute, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all have a copy of the report, the 12-page report. Understanding I have 10 minutes that I'm using up right now as I talk. I've condensed the report into a PowerPoint document tonight. Not everything in the report is in the PowerPoint, so some of the points I'm just talking to some of the larger projects in the PowerPoint. If you have any questions about any of the information in the actual report itself, please feel free to ask me at the end. All right, so welcome and thank you so much, and welcome to our new members. I'm really excited about this year and all of the great things that we're doing to support rural Kingston. Next slide, please. One of the projects, if you look at the report on page 3, is a community training farm. So last year was a pilot. We received funding from the province for a skills development fund for a pilot year to understand and try out a community training farm. It was in partnership with St. Lawrence College, Loving Spoonful, and Corrections Canada, plus the City of Kingston. We had an incredible year, 30 participants, supporting 30 of these participants finding jobs in the agricultural sector, which has been great. And a lot of the detail is also in the report. New funding has been approved as of last week to run the program again, starting actually last week for another full year with 30 participants as well. We have continued strong relationships with Loving Spoonful, St. Lawrence College, and Corrections Services of Canada. Business planning as part of this second year is underway. So I'm going to be building out a business plan to look at longer term sustainability of this program. We can't always rely on grants to continue this. And we also can't, as much as Corrections Services Canada has been so supportive on the land that we've been using, it's not a permanent location. So I've been looking towards building out a business plan to see long-term sustainability for this program. And yeah, looking to maybe build this out as a possible permanent agricultural training hub in Eastern Ontario. Next slide, please. Kingston Public Market. Wow, Kingston Public Market is one of the oldest markets in Canada and definitely one of the oldest in Ontario. April 1st was the first day of transition where we, for the first time, have had an operator on site that operates the public market portion on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. It's Loving Spoonful, who is the approved operator. I'm responsible for overseeing the actual project and working closely with Loving Spoonful to make sure that the market is running well. The goal of this particular strategy was to have Loving Spoonful in conjunction with us and myself to support them in transitioning the Kingston Public Market to a Kingston Farmers Market designation, which requires 50+1% of the vendors to be making their own food or buying and supplying food from the local community that's actually grown within our region. This is going to support agricultural businesses and farms and producers and food makers in the region to diversify and grow. And then the market designation also allows for more food events. So right now we're restricted to have food events with permits. A lot of permits are required at farmers at the public market. Currently, we cannot be making food on site. We can with multiple permits, public health involved, city permits involved. But with a farmers market designation, it allows for more flexibility in community events, food demonstrations, and local food happening on site as well. So we're really excited. We're hoping by fall, winter of this year that the Kingston Public Market will convert to a Kingston Farmers Market designation, and we'll keep you posted. Next slide, please. And I'm sorry I'm going so quick. There's a lot to cover, so I just want to make sure I get all the important ones in. This has been an ongoing...
Tracy, we really have lots of time. We want you to...
Well, I know.
Yeah, it's okay. We got it.
We will have it, and I just want to make sure I follow Derek's respectfully Derek's process. So the Cecil and Wilma Graham Park has been an ongoing discussion way before my time, and I finally have access to the original contracts from 2015. That's taken quite a while. So there have been multiple discussions underway with multiple departments about the existing $300,000+ that we have accumulated so far with regards to the fund, and then the annual amount that comes in for $92,000 a year. I know in the past we've had multiple meetings together, as there has been years and years ago public engagement on this about what that money could look like, and then of course that $300,000+ going towards the park with respect to having water access to the lake. Nothing has changed since our last conversation. We had talked about maybe doing more public engagement on what that could be, not with the existing 300,000, but with the money moving forward, the 92,000 per year. That existing 300,000+, still want to have further conversations with all of you on how we look at the park and then create accessibility for water access by boats, small boats. I don't know if I'm allowed to recommend this, Derek, but I am looking for the Rural Advisory Committee's recommendations on moving forward, possibly creating a subcommittee. And Councillor Eustaroff, I'll let you talk to that because you and I have talked quite a bit about this. There's two pieces to this particular project. One is the existing funds towards the park and water access. The second piece is moving forward with the 92,000 annually that we get from Samsung for the solar park and what we do with that. Next slide, please. Commercial Kitchen Training Day. So many years ago, when I was in another economic development role in another rural community, I had held quite a few commercial kitchen training days where we bring people together to talk about making local food. And the city of Kingston has, we have multiple commercial kitchens, but we have 2 designated municipally run commercial kitchens plus Portsmouth Olympic Harbor, so 3 that we have full oversight on. And what I decided was in February, we pulled together all the regulators, so Ontario Ministry of Agricultural, Farming and Rural Affairs, Canadian Federal Inspection Agency, and then of course KFLA Public Health. And we brought them in with 32 participants, and we talked about all the regulations about what it takes to make local food and what that could be in the potentials in terms of a business of making local food. And then we also brought panelists, 2 different panels together about different businesses that have actually made local food and are selling it now to retailers and restaurants and businesses. And then a panelist of businesses who are really interested in buying local food and what that means for them and why it's really important. It was a really successful event. Global came and did a story on us, and we had a lot of media coverage. The participants have been engaged. We're getting lots of calls on local food and producing local food. So we're actually I'm holding another event called Scaling Up in November to talk about the growth piece of the business making food. And so my goal long-term is to have a early spring starting up. This is what it's all about, to make local food and what that could be, and then have something late fall, early winter in terms of scaling up and growing the business. And so this particular session in November, we're going to be bringing in companies like Farm Boy and Sobeys and Loblaws to see, what does it take to sell local food to them as well. The bigger perspective really isn't about just making local food and, canning grandma's best spaghetti sauce or, making something that is frozen or dry goods. We're looking at helping people, if you're going to make local food in our kitchens, where do you store it? Is there distribution opportunities with our local distributors to be selling to other businesses? the other piece that's really even more important is how do we support these local food producers, so the people making local food, by working with our local farmers to grow that food. And that's really the ultimate piece for me, is how do we make that connection for local farmers to be growing local food and selling to businesses, to make local food, to sell to our local businesses. So that's kind of a big piece of how I see that in the larger scale and moving forward on an annual basis. Next slide, please. Open Farms Days. So when I started a year and a half ago, I had built up some pretty strong regional relationships with other economic developers and other municipalities across Ontario. And when I came into my role, I was pretty clear with my team and my supervisors that, you know, I want to be able to partner and work collaboratively with other regions in our community, especially from the rural perspective. And because even though we had the Rural Advisory Committee for many, many, many years, we had never really hired a person that was designated specifically for rural like myself. And so I'm, you know, the first person that's been hired in regards to supporting rural economic development. We also have the rural strategy that was created a couple of years ago that is kind of my guideline and my focus in terms of what I do and how I support our rural communities and work with you on making that happen. So when I came on board, I called Frontenac County and I said, you know, you guys have been doing open farms for a number of years and it's been very successful. How would you feel about maybe partnering with us and doing a test to see how a year of partnering with Open Farms would look? And Open Farms Frontenac was a really successful program for about 6 years, where on a designated weekend, sometime in September, they would work with local farmers and the farmers would open up their farms and their businesses or have events. And they would invite people from the community or visitors or tourists or residents to visit and then celebrate local farming and local food and really get to know the farmers and the businesses that are working on the ground and supporting that. Our partnership has been, I think, fantastic. We have a team from South Frontenac and then 2 people from Frontenac County, Richard Allen and Debbie Miller, who work really closely. We work closely together. We have multiple meetings together about what Open Farms is. So we had Open Farms last year. We had a weekend event. It was a very busy, full on-board weekend event of farmers, opening their doors up, farmers and farm production businesses and food production businesses having like dinner events. And it was just fantastic. Tourism Kingston was also partnering with us on it. And they really supported us and did a lot of things in collaboration with that. After many meetings, so after experiencing that and having many meetings with the partners for Frontenac County and South Frontenac Township, and the dedication really and the support from our local farming and food production community, which we've had multiple meetings on, we really believe that we should be expanding this, and only because the weekend was such a tight opportunity for tourists and residents to be choosing. Well, do I go here? Do I do that? What are the choices that I have? There are so many choices. So we really felt that having kind of an Open Farms time period would be a really great opportunity. And then, of course, just like we did last year, the idea last year was that Open Farms was going to be, a lot of the work was being done from Frontenac County. And then we were going to wrap up the whole Open Farms event with an Open Farms Harvest event that I organized with the City of Kingston and the staff at City Hall. Next slide, please. The Open Farms team, so Frontenac County, South Frontenac, and ourselves, City of Kingston, are recommending a direction for Open Farms 2023. We've had a lot of great reception from the farming community and our food producers that this makes a lot of sense. Frontenac County has actually already started and created a calendar where businesses and farm community can be putting in the calendar, okay, we want to have an event on this day, we want to have an event on that day. So it's really spread out the opportunities for residents and visitors to be visiting and tasting and experiencing what our farms are doing and our food producers are doing, instead of condensing it into one weekend. So our recommendation is that September 1st to October 15th, 2023 be declared Open Farms Days in both Kingston and Frontenac County in support of Open Farms. So celebrating farming and food in the City of Kingston and Frontenac County. I know that Frontenac County has already brought this to their advisory committee as well, their rural advisory committee, their economic development advisory committee, and it's been accepted in great ways. So I'm asking, and we'll talk about this after the PowerPoint presentation. I'm looking for your feedback on the declaration and a recommendation to our council, please. Next slide. And then in wrapping up open farms, just like we did last year. So last year, we had our first successful event in October at City Hall. I think I was actually the first person who ever asked our staff to book City Hall, Memorial Hall, all of Market Square for 3 days. It was actually a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. We had 100 attendees. It was a sold out event. We had 6 local restaurants producing tastings and tapas for these 100 participants from 35 farms in the region. And we had local wine and local beer, and we had like Limestone Creamery and County Bunny soda. And so we had all kinds of options for all family members and all participants as well. It was really absolutely a celebration of local farms and food and residents and chefs and really general foodies for an afternoon. It was 1 to 4. We had 4 great demonstrations inside City Hall. And then we paired all that with food and beverages and you know, all of the local wine and beer. And the demonstrations were educational. Education's a big part of it, you know, and talking about what we can be doing with food. We had one of our farmers talking as well. Each of the demonstrations, almost every single participant went to the demonstration. So the idea is the demonstrations were inside, and then the people will go from outside, you know, tasting some food. Everybody got a charcuterie board as part of their entrance fee, and the charcuterie board was their plate, was their tasting plate. So they would go out and do some tasting, get a little glass of wine or a beer. They would go in, watch a demonstration for a little bit. They would go back out again, taste some more, go back and watch another demonstration. So it was a lot of fun and quite the event. So planning's underway. We've already booked, I've already booked City Hall and Market Square for another 3 days. And the event is actually October 14th. So next slide, please. And there's other pieces in terms of the report, but I just wanted to highlight some of the bigger ones, but happy to answer any questions with anything that was on the report, please.
Thank you very much, Tracy. And yes, now's the time for questions. So Councillor Oosterhoff, your hand was up. We'll start with you, please.
See if the clerk can tell me to slow down. Just kidding, Derek.
Sorry, did I do 10 minutes? I think I'm good, right? We're good. Sorry, Derek, I'm just teasing you.
So where's that picture? Is that photo of the rural countryside? The picture that you have, the photo of the field and the laneway? That's an off.
Well, the last on the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So I asked our communications office to get me a picture of a farm in rural Kingston, so it's up to them.
I think I see it, but I see the little lake in the back. I must be near Lowborough. I have no idea. Or Collins Lake, I guess. Anyways, thanks for that. I try not to get too many questions here. You didn't really talk about the abattoir, but was there something to report on that, or that was just
No, happy to update. So in regards to the abattoir, I had I've had a couple of conversations with Corrections Canada on the abattoir. They are, I've been told that I should have a phone call or email in the next few weeks from their offices with a new posting that's going to go out with buyandsell.gc.ca. So they have to put a bidding process out. I have 2 possible operators that I've been speaking to, not directly, but through other people within the agricultural system. And then I have another operator who I had been working with for quite a number of years on the Napanee location, who's also interested in operating. So absolutely, I have a priority in terms of supporting the Joyceville Abattoir reopening as quickly as possible. I think some of the delay in that happening with Corrections Services Canada is and I've had multiple conversations with them since, is, well, they looked at the space and then they were like, well, what do we have to do to renovate? And it's because it had an operator in it for 30 years or so. And when I finally talked to them again, I'm like, you don't have to be renovating the space because it really depends on the operator that's going to be coming in. It could be a federal space because it's federal land. It could be a federal facility, a federal processing facility, but it also could stay as the provincial processing facility. So Bruce
Yeah.
Wallace had it as a provincial facility, but it could actually be converted to a federal facility as well.
I guess I'm just wondering, sorry, Tracy, on the
it's okay.
contact of that is, like, it's not really, I'm really glad that committee can be involved, and I'd like everyone to have an input, because it really has to be something that is driven by those who are desperate for that service. There's a comment in there that there's stress on farms when, you know, timing for you know, the herd management and all that is so important. And it's troubling to me. Like, it's not your decision either. I mean, where is the brain trust and the gathering of stakeholders that can drive this conversation and make this happen? Are we getting provincial government support?
Yes.
Are we getting
Yes.
stakeholder organizations, the herdsmen?
Yes, so we've actually had, so I had a conversation 2 weeks ago with a number of farmers who have actually sent out letters to the provincial government, to a number of the ministries. I have copies of those. I didn't feel I was in the position to share them, unfortunately, but it is happening. So the province has been involved. I've been in talks actually in the past month, both with the MPP and the MP's office within our area, to talk about what they're doing and how we can move this forward. I also have been speaking to pretty well the top of Correction Services Canada and feeling reassured that this is going to move soon. I think that their direction was a little bit, they had to look at a few things and see if it was even an option. I think they feel positive in terms of what's happening in the community, and that there is an absolute business opportunity there. The other piece that I am talking to them about, but it's just in discussion at this point, is to look at offering and this would be in collaboration with the community training farm. So to look at possibly having butcher training on site at the penitentiary and what that could look like. So not just the prisoners training in terms of butcher training, but having off-site people train for butcher training at that site as well.
Absolutely essential that we find.
Yes.
In our population, there's all kinds of gifted people who are quite capable of this. Yes.
Yeah. So working closely with St. Lawrence College and Fanshawe College, who's the only college right now that offers butcher training, they're quite happy to be supporting St. Lawrence College in reformatting what that training program looks like. If we could have this location. I have been working with Fanshawe and St. Lawrence College on the Napanee federal location, possibly. So everybody's on board. We just have to make that location happen. And so working closely with that. And the other piece, sorry, Councillor Stroff, is that it's not even just about supporting, you know, the existing farms who have livestock, and this is what they do. It's supporting our farming community in the region to have diversified options, right? So we're seeing a lot of farms closing down because they just don't have choices anymore in multiple places, not just livestock, but in, you know, so we can help support. And I can do everything I can to support the abattoir locations, hopefully too, then we're allowing our farmers in our community to have choices, which I think is even more important.
I mean, it is about a business plan for them as well. And I'm sure that that's something that somebody knows, and it doesn't have to come from us, but that's what we really needs to be presented is a location to give them an opportunity for business, and somebody can do that. So it is something that I would love to see be successful. The rural calendar, I wanted to comment. I wrote that down just a few minutes before you mentioned. I sure hope that that's something that we can, you can, and working with the other partner organizations have that, a rural calendar of events for all the things that you've talked about, the you know, the open farms and events. That would be really great for the community, and wherever we can, and maybe post them up in Glen Burnie Store and you know, the greenhouse, and you know, Sun Harvest, and wherever we can, you know, it'd be great to because it happens so fast, and we really want to have people out there from the rural area too. So that's kind of on my mind.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to do, Madam, through the chair, The Samsung Fund seems to be consistently unfinished business for us, Madam Chair. If there's a way that we could, with the clerk's guidance, make a motion or whatever is needed for a subcommittee to have separate conversation, Mr. Clerk, if that's something that's allowed. I don't know the process here, but through the chair, I'd really like that to be something that we could give positive communication on, supportive discussion. I really want it to be something, if it's possible, that we can help drive to a positive solution for the rural area. How could we do that, Madam Chair? And yes.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Oosterhoff. If we could back up a little bit,
Yes.
simply because we do have there's a lot of information here that's been presented and a lot that's in this 12-page report.
Yes.
That hasn't been touched on. And before we go any further, because for the benefit of our new committee members, your ask is completely, we'll see about the process, but it falls into this Cecil and Wilma Graham Park discussion and all of that. So there's a lot of moving parts. But before that, one thing I would like some guidance on going forward as the chair is that we have, and this is procedure and process. So I look to the clerk to help with this. We have our briefings, which generally is Tracy Snow. And then she presents her report, which happens to be the same document that falls under our business portion. So and Tracy over and presented her briefing, which she did. She was over a bit, and we have an opportunity to ask questions. However, the next business item when I look ahead is this actual report, the 12 pages that are attached to our agenda. So it seems a little confusing to me because we run into this issue every time. We have an opportunity to have a 10-minute briefing, and this 10-minute, maybe it was 16 minutes, doesn't matter. But this time of briefing, we still have a lot of information that hasn't been brought, or at least for the benefit of all of us, but especially for the new members, to get some kind of benchmark going forward. We meet 4 times a year as a committee, and a lot of things happen given the fact that we have some staff resources who are committed to rural and economic community development. And I don't want to miss anything, because what Gary wants to bring up is very important, and it's something that the Rural Advisory Committee needs to think about seriously, how we move forward. But from a process point of view, I need some direction as to how to run this meeting when we have a briefing for a certain period of time, and we can ask lots of questions, which we're doing, but we're discussing the very document that shows up in the business portion.
Yes, right.
So if somebody from the clerk can explain how we can streamline this, perhaps. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Madam Chair. As a clerk, we always appreciate streamlining. So I think the simplest way to do it would be to treat the briefing as an opportunity to ask questions of the presentation, as well as anything in the report. So asking questions would be great. When we get into the business item, that is where you can have more discussion about substantive items, or if you're looking to sort of advance any business. So I think it's probably best to leave questions of clarification or further information within the briefing, and then other more in-depth discussion should happen within the business section, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Sure. So for example, to follow up what Gary's proposing, he can ask the question, but we should have a more fulsome discussion on that idea of a subcommittee, or what we're the Samsung Fund under business. Is that reasonable?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, fair enough. So we have that's great, and I'll make a note of that so that we can follow up with that. So we can ask questions on anything within that document, the 12 pages within the briefings, if I understand correctly, even though it maybe wasn't part of the PowerPoint presentation?
That is correct. So the PowerPoint presentation is designed to hone in on some key issues where perhaps Tracy is looking for feedback, but anything that's contained within the report is available for discussion in either area as well.
Thank you very much. I hope that was helpful. I just to get through this because there's a lot of good information here, and we really want to try to bring people up to speed as best we can, knowing that there's a growth and realization period when we're all new committee members or just getting back into the committee as well. Okay, so let's carry on with some discussions from the committee based on the report. Yes, Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Tracy, I just have a couple of questions in regards to the farmers market. What is the current percentage that is local food producers? Because you indicated that your hope and goal was to get to the right percentage, the 51% by the fall. So we're now looking at the full summer of just standard operation and what the existing model is, or is it still being evaluated?
Yeah, so Loving Spoonful has a contract that we worked really hard in terms of those expectations and what the deliverables are going to be, and they work with me on that. So the idea is that this summer we are going to build relationships back up with the vendors, build relationship with new vendors. We are probably not far. I don't know the exact percentage, to be honest. I want to say it's in the low 40s in terms of local farm producers to say resellers, which we want, crafters, resellers, people that aren't necessarily growing their own food but selling food from Ontario. And so the idea is that over the next few months, building out those relationships, working with the farming community, supporting what this could be with the farmers market and the growth and the opportunity it could be, that by the fall we will have new farmers come in to grow, to sell their product. That's the ultimate goal.
Okay, no, good to know. Just a quick comment and follow up on Gary, Councillor Oosterhoff's comments about the Battoir. Back when I was farming, I had access to Quinn's Meats, Garrett's Meats, Joyceville. They're all gone. And when I had my poultry, I had to take north of Belleville. So even if we move towards a abattoir for processing beef and pork, we still have a big void in poultry or anything along those lines. So I'm just putting it on your radar that there's further need, not just beyond cattle and pigs, for items for consideration, if you will.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so with regards to that, absolutely, completely understand. Like right now, the only poultry abattoir is north of Belleville, and their equipment is aging, and new owners. They've only been new owners in the past year and a half. So the two sites, so right now the Napanee site that's been kind of in the works, I was heavily involved with that when I was with Lennox-Stanton County, was going to be, and hopefully still is, they're still talking about this and there's still somebody looking at it, a federal facility. So a federal facility where basically, and I worked on the plans of the building, so basically the building is going to split in two, where one side is red meat and one side is poultry. When I've been talking to Correctional Services Canada, Bruce Wallace has always held it as a provincial site and had just red meat only. He didn't have poultry in there. I've talked to them about it being a federal facility with having both those options. So they've been open to what that looks like, and it really depends on the operator that comes in. And I guess the small blessing is that the Joyceville Penitentiary site, the Joyceville Abattoir site is in the city of Kingston. So they will have me in terms of resources and opportunities to help look at what that business could look like, look at the opportunities for diversification and growth, introduce them to new business. Like I literally for 2.5 years had worked with a local farmer in the Lennox-Stanton County area about building an abattoir. And so I have a lot of background and knowledge and contacts to make the Joyceville one that is just as successful, right? And whether it's provincial or federal.
Okay, no, that's awesome. The commercial kitchen training day, I think that's a fantastic idea. And just food for thought. There's a couple of local restaurants that are really local driven in regards to food coming in. Bella Bistro is one, and obviously Black Dog Tavern with Tim Pater.
Yeah.
It might be just an avenue to walk down and support more of our local farmers, is to have those two owners, chefs, come in and attend, so that they can talk about their desires of what they're looking for local produce.
So you mean at the harvest event?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bella was there last year.
Sorry, the commercial kitchen training days.
Oh, the commercial kitchen training day. Yes, absolutely. No
Yes.
question. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. In regards to another follow-up on Councillor Oosterhoff's was the open farms, and generally every councillor has a district association that they're attached to or they have access to. I have Portsmouth District Association, and they're very active, very strong in the community. And whenever I get information from the city or from a group, and I think it's useful for my district to know about it, I send it through to them. So it might be an avenue for you to really promote the open farms, is to push it out to the councillors and just give them a small reminder. Push this out to your district associations, and you'll get
great idea.
A bigger feedback or uptake. So
okay, no, thank you. Good idea.
Yeah. That's it, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Well, I'd like to pass the chair to, I'll pass the chair to Councillor Oosterhoff so I can ask a couple of questions if I may, please.
Just for your benefit, Madam Chair, you do not need to pass the chair to ask questions, only if you're going to make like statements supporting or not supporting something. So you can maintain the chair and ask your questions.
Excellent.
Okay, that's streamlining, like it. Okay. My question for Tracy is with respect to the Kingston Public Market redevelopment. I'd like to know if there's been consideration, or how does it affect the Memorial Market, which is a pretty strong, well-supported market. Is it something that's going to potentially compete with, which could have a potential negative influence? So how is it going to affect? Has there been some discussions with the manager of the Memorial Market? And is there a market manager? They seem to have a lot of support at Memorial Market. Will the same resources be there, or is that the plan for the Kingston Public Market redevelopment? And there were sticky points in the past about pricing and commitments that vendors, i.e. farmers, had to make and had to be there so many times a week consistently, otherwise they would lose their stall. Do you have any of that information, or are we too premature in asking those questions? Thank you.
No, we have all that information. So yes, with the new oversight with Loving Spoonful, they actually have a market operator, so a market manager. Her name is Adrian, and she runs a farm called Charlie's Acres. And by absolute coincidence, I helped her and her partner when they were first opening Charlie's Acres in Lennox-Anton County. So she also has a vendor's booth at Memorial Market. Now she's since removed herself from it as a conflict. The other piece, though, is that both Ayla Fenton, who is our contact with Loving Spoonful, and Adrian, they also have past experience with Memorial Market and have also been on the board. They are no longer, again, because of the conflict. Our goal is to work very closely with Memorial. Like, that is the goal. Our goal is to not pull from them or be in competition with them. Our goal is actually be wonderful if we could eventually actually have everybody sitting at the same table, talking together about supporting agriculture all together. So that's the ultimate goal. And the blessing, and one of the biggest reasons why Ayla and Loving Spoonful were chosen was because of the relationships that they already have with the Memorial Market. And then with Adrian also being part of the Memorial Market in the past, and then being a farmer, there's just so many great pieces to it. Yeah, absolutely full on collaboration moving forward. No question.
Thank you. I'm looking for other questions from, yes, go ahead, Councillor Oosterhoff.
Yes, sorry, Madam Chair. I had one question. I didn't say I was finished there, and that's fine. I understand it was confusing there. I just wanted to ask about the transit again, Tracy, because I have this nagging worry, and we could talk offline too, but that it's just going to be shelved until. But it was my understanding that there would be pilots, and maybe Councillor Amos knows a bit about this too. It seems to be for me a little bit it's disappearing act or something. I don't know what's going on, whether there will be pilots now, or is it only was the transit study for the rural area, which I really thought was excellent. Is it just dependent on funding now that nothing can happen, or where would that be for pilots? I know in Pittsburgh with Councillor Bohms for this area, and I thought one in the West. So I just wondered what you might know about that and how we can sort of keep it alive.
So you're talking about the rural transit study that's being done currently?
Well, it's done, and now I think it's sort of said, they've done their presentations. Where does it go from here so that it doesn't just say, well, we did it, that we can.
So, okay, so yeah, so the IBI group, who's actually been designated for the study, they're not done. We're still doing another public engagement piece in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. So there's another public engagement piece being done in 2 weeks. The report is not even close to being organized or written or anything at this point. And they're still talking to some of the larger employers that I've been engaging with, the largest employers that we have, to see what their needs are. Yeah. So my gosh, we're not even close to being wrapped up.
Okay. Okay. It's very, very important that we do an exhaustive search in our climate change agenda and how the rural area can be part of the solution. We haven't touched we're only on the tip of the iceberg for what we can contribute. And I think the time is now. So thank you, Madam Chair. I'm done my questions. I just want to brought that onto the.
Sorry, my apologies. So the contract has them finishing full reporting by September, October of this year. So there's still lots of time for engagement.
Thank you.
Okay.
We can't hear you.
Oh, you're on mute, Allison.
Okay, sorry. I'm going to ask a question if there's no other right now from the group, and I'm just looking to see where my notes are. So my question is with respect to the open farms, expanded open farms calendar for looking like 5 weeks or so, at least a month. Open farms harvest event. Perhaps it's early in the game, but a good event last year, and it's going to be expanded. That's the plan for this year for October 14th. What kind of numbers are you looking at as far as selling tickets for, and what will the price tag be this year?
Good question. So first event last year, never have done it before. We didn't even break even. We were lucky other departments had covered some of the costs on some of the hard things that we needed to have for the event. It's not meant to be a moneymaker at all. It's meant to be a celebration and education and an introduction to our community with regards to local food and our farming and all of that. We cannot fit more than 150 people in Memorial Hall. So it will be capped at 150 people. Because that's the capacity of Memorial Hall, convenient, like in a nice way. Like I don't think we'd want to pack it more than that. The other piece is with regards to the fee. So it was a $75 fee last year. Again, first time event, just trying it out, seeing how it was working out. We are looking and already speaking to sponsors to look at helping support financially the event as well, and looking at sponsors, whether it's like we had fencing that wrapped around the property that cost a lot of money. Well, maybe this year we want to talk about sponsoring that fencing, right? And we had a sponsor that actually did all the charcuterie boards. So in exchange for 200 charcuterie boards that he created for us, or 150 boards, we then gave him marketing and communication and collaboration with the city of Kingston. So we are very active right now in looking at sponsorships and partnerships to help support the costs, which would then lower the price. So my goal is to lower the price and have more collaboration with some partners that would like to invest in it. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I don't know if this is if I can, but a comment, if I could, just a comment. to the point of the fencing, when I was there last year, I found fencing means keeping people out to me.
Yeah.
And I worry that with a focus on capping your numbers, and I can appreciate if your venue is Memorial Hall, that you're creating an exclusive event and keeping certain people out. If you're trying to gain support for this market, Kingston Public Market, and make it a true farmers market, and you're going to put a fence around it, you need to be careful, perhaps, in my mind, about the message that you're sending to everyone else, that, well, this market on this weekend is for these people who paid this ticket price. And I fundamentally don't believe that's what local food is about. And it's not because it shouldn't be exclusive. And so I just make that comment, and because it could be something very much worth celebrating, but fences, and if they're expensive, do we really need them? And maybe that changes the format of the plan, but I felt that it important to share that comment.
Thank you. Yeah, if I can make a comment, absolutely hearing you, and we heard that as well last year. The fencing was only because of the permitting and licensing requirements for alcohol being served. That was really the stipulation. We had to do it that way. The farmers market portion, because the event is going to be on Saturday of this year, which is a farmers market day, we are actually having, and I'm working with Loving Spoonful on this, we're actually having the farmers market wrap around the event. So all around City Hall. So there'll be like 40 vendors, 50 vendors wrapped all the way around the event. So then anybody who's not participating at the event can also still go to the farmers market, and vice versa. The people attending the event can go to the farmers market. And I understand, that inclusion piece with the fencing, it's not nice. Again, it was just from a permitting standpoint on the alcohol. One of the other pieces that we're definitely putting into the picture is offering tickets, for vulnerable people that are looking to participate, and then offering tickets at the door as well. So there is absolute open discussion in terms of what that could look like.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Again, sorry, I don't mean to take over, but I do have a question with respect to the first item you spoke about, the community training farm program. It looks like there's a lot of potential with that when you say things like the only agricultural training hub of its kind in Eastern Ontario, your long-term goals of sustainability. My question is there an arrangement with Correction Services for the land on which this program is held currently? And is it in jeopardy of changing? And which means you would have to look for land elsewhere. If you could just give a little bit more information on that.
Sure, no problem. So yeah, we have a temporary agreement with Corrections Canada to have that 5 acres of property at the corner of Days in Front Road. They have had some upper tier goals with regards to what that property is going to look like. That whole south piece on Front Street. That they are not privy to give us information on. So they've made a commitment to us for the next few years that we have that property and we can continue to use that property. In the background, I am actively working with our city departments, our real estate planning departments, and with our senior staff to look at what can we do at the city level to offer property for a sustainable model moving forward. So I'm so sorry, I wish I can't talk more about it, but I can tell you we're very active in terms of looking at a piece of property that would possibly be city owned that we could use for long term. Yeah, so already thinking ahead of that.
Yeah, I saw here, because we're talking about property to train people and work on a farm, and we just lost in the not so distant future Kempville College. And it's, and I know it's not in Kingston, but it's to do the same thing. It's just
and I am cognizant of that, and talking, really looking at this is just preliminary. This is just preliminary, and I'm just talking to you about preliminary. Looking at the business plan has not even been started. There's a lot of work still to be had about what the needs are, what the goals are, what kind of farming it looks like, what kind of training looks like. So again, just preliminary conversations. There's nothing long-term has been said yet.
Any other questions before we move on? Again, I have one more, and it's just with respect to a motion that this committee brought forth to the City of Kingston, and it is with respect to item number 6. It wasn't addressed within the briefing, but the rural funding motion. So can you just please tell us where that is at? Because it's a very important piece that enables people to get involved in agriculture and be supported, people who choose to live in the rural part of the City of Kingston, considering what, supporting that sector is one of the main pillars in this, the strategic plan for the city. Tracy, please.
Yeah, so I do have to say that unfortunately, since the last time we met, there hasn't been a lot of progress in regards to what I've seen happening. I'm still very active in working with both the MP and the MPP's office on changing, OMAFRA is one of them, the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Farming and Rural Affairs, definitely one of the provincial ministries that needs to address this, where we don't have access to grant funding to help support our rural communities and our rural businesses and our agricultural businesses, because the cap is at 100,000 population. And so we're over 100,000 population, even though rural Kingston is 83% of the land base for the City of Kingston, we're still defined as over 100,000. And so I'm working really hard with the province and the federal government to see how we can change that. I'm also working closely, like I had said in my last meeting, with Ann Pritchard from the Frontenac Business Services, the CFDC, the Community Future Development Corporation, who's also addressed this with the province as well, and the feds, because she's federally funded, the CFDC is federally funded, to see how we can change the terminology of what funding looks like to support rural Kingston. So I'm very active in this, and trying hard. I just have other people and other departments and other ministries that I'm awaiting information from. If you have any recommendations on how we can have a stronger voice, I'd be very happy to hear it.
Thank you. It's a difficult one for sure. Other questions at this time for this section of the meeting under briefings? Okay, seeing no questions, we're going to move on to the business portion, where the report from the director of the Office of Strategy, Innovation and Partnerships is attached, which we've talked about. Now, here's our opportunity to dig a little deeper, if I understand from what the clerk mentioned earlier, for further actions, a little bit deeper discussions on some of the components or any of the items within that document. So we can entertain questions. And at this time, there's questions from the committee first. And if there are any people on this meeting call from the public, have an opportunity to ask questions afterwards. So would someone like to start the discussion here? I mean, I have a note here talking about the Samsung Fund. Perhaps this is an opportunity to address that. And if that's the case, then Councillor Oosterhoff, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oops. Yeah, you got me. Thank you, Madam Chair. So yeah, the two things. So if we could just make a list of what is expected of us as a committee for bring to council.
Sorry, could I interrupt for a moment? And does everybody understand what the Samsung? Are you familiar with the Samsung Fund? Okay, so could somebody please explain that for the benefit of everybody getting a call? It doesn't matter to me, someone who can speak to it. Tracy, can you speak to what that is?
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't, with your permission, Councillor Oosterhoff, just to clarify it so that we can have a more fulsome discussion. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tracy. Yeah.
Councillor Oosterhoff, do you want to do it instead?
No, it was before my time as well, but I'll just share that when the solar projects on Unity Road were completed, or the contract for allowing them to produce the solar energy, there was an agreement. I call it community benefits. Let's just say we'll call it, and so there was an agreement written up with Samsung that there's so much per kilowatt hour would, or whatever, over the year would come to the rural area for investment. And it was fairly tightly defined what that could be, and mostly related to parks and recreation in the rural area, and trees a little bit of flexibility there, but not that much. And we may have to look at that again, but it is something that we will discuss further, but there is money available now. And my suggestion, Madam Chair, that we've been talking about is that we actually somehow establish a committee and make this happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from the new people? New members, sorry.
All right, so make this happen as far as a subcommittee to I just want a little bit more information, Councillor Oosterhoff, what exactly you're asking for right now in this. Is it respect to the Samsung Fund, how the Samsung Fund is dedicated, where it's dedicated?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I don't really know, and I guess I'm going to be looking for guidance from the clerks and how it is written up. Are we allowed to even do that? Or is it just here? Because I don't know how to give it substance without the formality of a committee. I don't know what to do, but I certainly would. I really would hope that it would be something that this committee could, listen to the submissions and then grapple with it a bit and give this recommendation substance.
Okay, Clerk O'Shea, please.
Yes, I'm happy to provide some context. So back in March of 2020, the committee passed a recommendation whereby the funds were going to be put into a reserve to accumulate dollars. So it was $92,000 per year would be accumulated in this funds to build up the coffers for some potential investment. And the final part of that recommendation was that subsequent to 2020, so this year in 2023, staff is to carry out public consultation regarding potential continued accumulation of funds or utilization of funds, including consideration for improvements to rural boat launches. So to Councillor Oosterhoff's point, this committee is the one that has the ability to receive that public feedback through staff, as well as to provide that input and that direction, working with staff on what the fund should be utilized. So the proper format for that would be for staff to conduct a public engagement on the topic, provide that feedback to the committee, and then work with the committee to receive feedback and ultimately provide a staff recommendation based on the committee's feedback on how to proceed with the disbursement of the funds. So hopefully I was able to answer that, but long story short, to Councillor Oosterhoff's point, there is a process already set in place from this motion. It just needs to be activated by staff at this time. And since we are in March 2023, we're at a pretty good time. So to make it really simple, Councillor Oosterhoff, there's nothing more that you need to do at this point.
Okay.
We just had to have a history lesson, and honestly, the last 3 years, it's easy to forget what's happened given the world events.
You're right. And I wasn't being critical or anything. I was being eager that we certainly would see some success there in the conversation or move forward. So, Madam Chair, the other one I wanted to ask you about was was there a recommendation that Ms. Snow was looking for open farm days, where should we write up that, or is that recommendation already written up and we vote on that? Well, I'll leave that to you as chair.
Yeah, to that point, Clerk O'Shea.
So to that point as well, because this report is an information report, there's nothing contained within it in terms of a formal motion. So what the best process is the committee can provide feedback on the motion that was presented by Tracy, and then the two council members can work with clerk's department staff, and we can bring that forward to council directly through Councillor Oosterhoff and Councillor Amos as a new motion or as a motion of recognition, as there's a formal process. So no need for a formal vote here at the committee, but the committee can provide basically their yay or nay, which we can probably guess what it will be, as well as any suggestions for content to be contained within that.
Thank you, Clerk O'Shea. I believe Councillor Amos had his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I just want a quick question. One, I fully support this, but I should have not added but anyways. Tracy, you had indicated in your report that a number of farms were consulted in the expansion of the process. So September 1st to October 15th. And I also, that's obviously prime harvest time. And I'm wondering, the operational tempo for farms tends to pick up at that point. And so you had said that there's a calendar coming forward. This is where these heavily engaged operational farms can pick and choose their weekends? They're not actually signing up for every single weekend? Okay.
That's correct. Yeah. So the idea about spreading it out over a period of 6 weeks would allow each of the farms, understanding its harvest season and a very busy time, that they would be able to pick days that are best for them to do events or to do showings and have their farms open. Or we have some farms that actually do dinners. It would allow them flexibility to pick and choose which days work for them, and then not also have it on 1 or 2 particular days so that we're missing out on opportunities for new visitors. Does that answer your question?
It does. My only comment or fear is, are we watering it down too much by adding that many dates? And that's just a off the top of my head thought. And then because it was such a success over one weekend, we made a very big jump by adding 5-6 weekends. And what happens if, you know, I'm throwing that pendulum on the other side now, what happens if we have no farms sign up for a given weekend? Are we then promoting and moving something forward where we don't actually have a 1 or 2 or 5 farms available for engagement for the public? These are my only caution thoughts that are going through. I love the idea, I love the concept. I just have to throw that out there for consideration or thoughts, I guess. But I think anytime we can celebrate our farms and anything along those lines, I think it's a great avenue, especially engaging the urban population to engage more with our farmers and them understanding where the food is coming from.
Thank you. May I comment?
Yep. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you. So absolutely, I understand what you're saying about thinning it out and watering it down. We found that in last year's weekend event, and I know that Frontenac County found this as well in the past, is that there was so many businesses and farm businesses that wanted to be participating, and it was just impossible. There was too much overlap. The concern about not having anything happening on a weekend. So we're working closely with Tourism Kingston. They're really excited about doing some things as well from a tourism standpoint and a restaurant standpoint and local food standpoint. Last year, they actually ran 2 open farms dinner events. One was Days on Front and one was at the Everly. Both sold out, like really very quickly sold out. So I think there's a lot of collaborative partners that are also going to work with us on making what that calendar looks like. I don't feel like we're giving a lot of notice. We've had, farm meetings and farm producer meetings over the past few months, but what that looks like, what their thoughts were, their recommendations on a time frame of it. Everybody was really happy that they got to have different weekends to feel that maybe that day was their day, or at least they only had to share with a couple of other farms and not 10. So that really helped a lot as well. And then in collaboration with the regional partners, the idea is we're going to launch the event on Friday, September 1st at the Frontenac Farmers Market in Harrowsmith, and then have a big event, big launch at that event, and then every weekend after that have events happening, within the Frontenac and then Kingston area, and then the wrap up would be the harvest event. So I hope that's not the case, Councillor Amos, but I'm pretty, based on the conversations we're having as a team with the Frontenac and South Frontenac group, and then also with the farmers, I think we're feeling pretty confident that we'll have a good solid calendar.
Excellent. Thank you. You brought my anxiety down. It's good.
So how to that point, do you have farms committed right now that are willing to open their doors? And
Yes.
how many?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that one. I'm working closely with Frontenac County on that one. Frontenac County right now is overseeing and managing the calendar, of course, in partnership with us, but I don't know, but I know that there's quite a few that have already made a commitment for the calendar. Yeah.
And will it be a ticketing process as it was last year?
Yeah, so last year, yes. So this year, actually, the ticketing is going to be per farm or per food producer. So each of the businesses are responsible for their own ticketing. Our job is going to be marketing and communications and really pushing that out, pushing the calendar out, letting everybody know what's happening. But we're wanting each of the, because it just gives everybody their own, they're just their own opportunity to be managing it themselves. And it was a lot of work. Frontenac County went through a lot of work last year when we did just the one ticket opportunity and everybody had to funnel through the one ticketing agency. It was a full-time job. So yeah, I think this is going to help everybody.
Great, thank you. All right. Any other discussions on that point? I do want to go back though, Gary, to yours, talking about the the action item that Clerk O'Shea sort of said, there's no need to have a subcommittee. We just need to put the action plan in place. So as a committee, where do we want to go with that? Do we need to make a motion? Do we need to do a show of hands? What our next steps are to that point, which is discussing the funds? Yes, Clerk O'Shea.
So not to slow down the momentum of the committee, but at this point there still is a need for that public consultation to happen as under that. So I think any discussion in that area may be premature. It will be coming up in the near future through a staff report. So I think it was just the purpose of Tracy's report, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, was to provide an update on the topic. So there will be an opportunity for more substantive discussion through a staff report and through a public engagement. So wish there was more that could happen, but Tracy might be able to add something.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, so there's a number of pieces to this. So absolutely the public engagement piece is really important, but really the first priority is I'm trying to find somebody to talk to at Samsung. So the original two signers of the agreement in 2015 are no longer with the corporation. And so I have been working with other departments. I'm trying to find out who the contacts are at the Samsung organization who manage their portfolio. And we're actually tracking it through their accounts payable department and accounts receivables department, because we get a check every year. So we're tracking it that way. But Samsung has over 266,000 employees. And the two that were on the contract no longer work for the company. So that's been a bit of a task, is trying to find, Samsung made agreements and the city made agreements that this is what we were going to do with the funds. So I just want to have a very, professional, courteous phone call and talk about, this is what we're thinking of doing. We're looking at bringing it back to public engagement about how we, spend the 92,000 every year. Absolutely still wanting to have a discussion in terms of what does that 300,000+ look like for the water access, the boat water access. But I think the first priority needs to be just in talking to Samsung about this actually happening, because they have been part of it. The second piece is doing public engagement, which I've already been working with our communications team on making that happen. And I said that, I had to have this meeting with you first to talk to you about what was happening and then talk about that public engagement piece. Third piece is, so tonight I am looking for some thoughts on, Derek, we don't have to be talking about this tonight, but if there's any thoughts in terms of what questions or ideas you want to be addressed at that public engagement piece, because I'll be doing that public engagement, then let me know, because that public engagement is going to be a really important piece for us then to come back as a committee and then talk about, so what do we see moving forward, what that money could look like. An example of the 92,000. So our department, the Strategy Innovation Partnership Department, has a designated grant manager who writes and looks for grants to support the city of Kingston and support our department as well. That 92,000, we could even look at and talk to all of you, and even talk from a public engagement standpoint and talk to Samsung and say, even if we said we took 30,000 of that and then matched another grant, we could then make, instead of 92,000, we could make 120,000. So then we would actually increase revenue opportunities to build out more opportunities for rural Kingston. So the 92,000 is fantastic, and we could do amazing things with that 92,000 moving forward. But and this is not a gambling thing or like we're investing in stock. We're like, if we can find a grant to match rural initiatives, and it just needs matching dollars, well, then we can maybe, double what we have in terms of the 92,000 to help with those initiatives. So there's a lot of potential. And I think a lot of things that we have to talk about in terms of what are the goals from a rural perspective. We have the rural strategy, and those are really clear. But how do we support and respectfully and professionally, planting trees is really important. But $92,000 can also do some incredible things, for rural Kingston.
Councillor Stroff, you had your hand raised. Go ahead. You're on. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Mhm.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, no, that's really good. And I know that I do look forward then, as the clerk has advised us, to have the public engagement. And I certainly don't have any plan to direct it other than, try to bring the wisdom of the community to the concentrate, which I hear about. And, I like the idea of parks, it serves everyone. And the Cecil Graham, sorry, that's another full name there, but is such an opportunity, with such a generous gift, a legacy gift from a family that, unfortunately, with the city's funding model for parks is going to be like in 100 years or something like that. Forgive me, but it's not 100, but it's a long time. But this could really, these funds could really be channeled to make someone's, gift come alive a little bit. I think it has to be, at least to get the designs going. And I know that people don't really want a big boat launch there. So I'm talking about more of a recreation kind of boat launch, but give it access so people can be there. It's a tremendously beautiful area on Aragon Road. And I think that it's just, not really accessible to people. So that's what I have in my mind a little bit, because that would really show the deep respect that we were given an amazing gift by the Grahams. So, that's in my mind. So, and I'm sure there's other parks we can enhance, because the city, that's a big ticket budget, and we can really do something special with that money. But that's on my mind right now, but we'll go from there.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee at this point? Okay, I'm seeing none. I'm going to ask, is there any members of the public on this call to have an opportunity to ask a question?
Allison, there are no members of the public on the call. I'll just actually ask too, because it's hard with Wayne Jackson via the phone. So Wayne, if there's anything you would like to ask or comment on, you can just again use *6 to unmute yourself. If you are good though, we will just carry on. So we'll give that a moment, and yeah, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yes, I sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
No, I don't have any questions at this point. I'm just trying to digest everything as we go. So I would have a couple of follow-up questions at a later date, but at this moment, I suggest we just carry on. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so to that point, for moving on, we were under the item agenda 8A, and then moving on, there's the Rural Advisory Committee 2022 report card is attached, and it is the report of the committee and its activities in the past year, and it's numbered on pages 13 to 17, which you had been given in your document prior to the meeting. Now, there's a recommendation here, and I need a little bit of support from staff here as to how we handle this. So I'm going to, thanks. Go ahead, Clerk Gaucher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the recommendation is just simply that the report card be accepted by the committee and then go up to council. This is a recommendation of the committee bylaw that all advisory committees provide an annual report on their activities. So this just summarizes the work that was done through the Rural Community Development Office and the feedback that was provided by the committee. So with a lot of new members, it's more of a history lesson. So it's a chance to ask any questions about this. And if there are no questions, it's just a matter of a mover, seconder, a vote, and it will go to council, assuming it passes.
Thank you so kindly for that point of clarification. Tracy, I recognize you.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure, because this is coming from you, Allison, that there isn't anything we're missing in here that you think is important to bring to council in terms of the report card from last year. Only looking for your direction on that.
Yeah, and overall, I wanted to see a bigger stress point on just all of the things we've spent a lot of time talking about, which is a lot more agriculture focused, and it seems to be sort of not really included in this report card enough. Enough to make it, because we spend a lot of time in the briefing and the business discussion on that very fact, illustrated by tangible events, Open Farms Harvest, the training program on the land at Correctional Services Canada. It's just not strongly enough worded, even though it's mentioned agricultural, but just not specific enough. So to that point, yes, go ahead.
So Derek, are we allowed to update the report card before it's presented to council?
Any significant updates would either need to be agreed to by the committee, or what I might recommend is, if Allison would like to add anything, we defer consideration and bring it to another meeting, and then Allison can add the content that she would like to it, and we can go from there.
I'm happy to do with whatever you'd like, Allison.
Okay. Well, I guess just as it doesn't have to be lengthy. It's just a little bit more specificity on particular issues when we talk about as number one issue is service forum for public discussion to examine issues of interest, impact, including but not limited to, start out, at least before environmental issues, just talking about the importance of promoting local food producers, and linking that to the city. I don't think it has to be a whole lot more complicated than that. Go ahead, Clerk O'Shea.
I think those aspects you're referring to, Allison, are just the mandate of the committee as it's copied and pasted from the bylaw. So I didn't want to alter the way the mandate actually appears in the bylaw just for consistency. So hopefully that explanation helps. It's by no means meant to categorize what is important to the committee. It's just providing that background to a report reader of this is what the committee deals with and what is contained in the current committee mandate.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw that out to the rest of the committee, especially the ones who have served on this committee the past year. How do you feel? Do you have any comments on that? Yes, it's fundamentally the same from year to year, but are we putting enough? It's just, there's a lot of resources put into certain things. And I want to make sure that, the document or whatever is recommended to council is that we acknowledge this, we appreciate this, therefore it is noted most specifically. So I need a little bit of feedback here from other committee members as to what do they think.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate you saying that, because yes, we want to give it the substance it should have, and so I would be willing. I'm not exactly sure where we would insert that. I got the whole document here, but if you would say, I want to say yes to you, and that if that's, because I think it's important. I mean, it's only Charles and myself, I think, that can speak to it, and yourself, as far as the committee from last year, and others are gone. So why don't you just let us know, you go ahead with that, Allison. I think it's a great idea. I think it's respectable to do that.
So essentially, just a little bit more oomph, an emphasis on agriculture / local food, which just isn't really, it isn't really spelled out, if I can say that, so much in the document. And maybe, who would we go to just add that? Because it doesn't have to be exhaustive, nor does it have to be long. Go ahead, Clerk O'Shea.
Just in the interest of time, and because we do have a meeting coming up in May in less than a month, I might suggest the committee move a motion to defer this, and then I can work with you outside of this, Allison, and we can present an amended report to the committee just to save time. So in that case, the motion would just be to defer the consideration to the May 8th meeting to allow staff to update the report. So in that case, I'll turn it back to you, Madam Chair, but if you're comfortable, you would just need to get a mover and a seconder and then have a vote.
Thank you very much. So I'm looking for someone to move that we defer this report, basically the report card of the Rural Advisory Committee until the May 8th meeting with suggested changes as we've gone around the table. So mover Charlie Foreman and a seconder.
I'll
recognize
second that.
Okay, Mr. Jackson, great. And
Wayne
any
Jackson,
other
yes.
Dwayne Jackson.
Mhm.
Any other discussion before I call the vote on that? All right, then all those in favor, raise hands.
In favor.
Thanks very much. Okay, opposed, seeing none, that's carried. Thank you very much. Done.
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair, for doing that. I think it's good for the committee to be able to, and helpful for the others when we see the substance of those meetings. Thank you.
Thanks. Agenda item number 9, motions. Are there any other motions that have come to this committee? Clerk O'Shea,
Sorry,
yes.
just Madam Chair, there is
Sorry.
business item C, which is about the meeting format moving forward, just a brief discussion. So I can take a quick lead on that if you do not mind.
I would love you to. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Very briefly, since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the committee has met completely virtually, but with the changing public health landscape, we felt it would be valuable to have a discussion about future meeting format. So what I will present to the committee tonight are there 3 options. The first option is to maintain the status quo, which is a completely virtual meeting like tonight. The second option would be a hybrid format whereby some participants could participate virtually and other members could participate in person. The restriction with this is city only has one facility that can combine virtual and in-person participation. And that would mean in-person participants would have to come to City Hall for the meeting. So not the most rural setting. The third option, which is back to what was done pre-COVID times, was a completely in-person meeting. These were traditionally held in fire halls or schools in the rural area. The one caveat with that is with a fully in-person meeting, there would be no option for participation from the public via Zoom. However, they would be able to attend in person. The other thing is there would be no recording of the meeting and no YouTube live streaming of the meeting. So those are the options, Madam Chair. It is up to the committee. We can have an informal discussion and see if there is any particular preference amongst the committee members on how they would like to participate.
Thank you, Clerk O'Shea. All right, let's have that discussion. What do you think, everyone? What are your preferences? Please start us off, somebody.
Am I allowed to talk?
I'm going to, yes. First, Councillor Ustroff, and then we'll, we'd like to get some feedback. Go ahead, Councillor Ustroff.
Yeah, I definitely would like to hear from everybody. I am torn a bit because I'm from the old and the past, present, and future. So I really do appreciate the in meetings. But Derek has our clerk has explained it quite well, and I do like the Zooms. Okay, I get to see everybody, and maybe we could arrange for one meeting a year or something to get together. I'd like to get to know you people more, especially as the new members. I'm so pleased that you're here with us. But the Zoom is a fantastic technology that is working and keeps us in our homes. We're all very, very busy in our lives, and last week was 5 nights in a row for me, and then I took one in on Zoom. It saved my week, really. So this is and the limits, going into City Hall, because it gives us, I really like the idea that the public can connect when they want to as well. We don't see it tonight, so I'm probably torn, but I do like the Zoom. I really, really do. This is amazing, and our clerks are phenomenal at supporting us in it. So, but the personal is important too. I'm a people person, okay. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, some more opinions. Some of our new okay, go ahead, Charlie, and then we'll hopefully keep hearing from new members. Go ahead.
Well, I'm basically the same as Gary. I'm still old school. I like to talk to people face to face, but the Zoom is extremely convenient. It takes me over half an hour to get to a fire hall, and same thing back. So I enjoy the Zoom as well.
Thank you. Other thoughts?
It's Jacqueline. I wonder if we could
you.
rotate it. I think it's a beautiful idea to be able to rotate, maybe especially in the summer months when driving is friendlier to do. Could that be an in-person? But just to build that in-person rapport. And to do so safely, and then revert to Zoom, because Zoom is convenient, yes, but I think it also provides an open opportunity, it seems, is what I'm hearing, for community members to easily attend and hear what's going on.
Thank you. More comments, please. Yes, Mr. Jackson, I recognize you. Go ahead.
Okay, it's Wayne speaking, and I would favor an in-house meeting, because I think that it's important in the beginning to meet everyone face to face, and once that is established and we're kind of familiar with each person, then we could carry on with the other electronic media. So I would be in favor. It wouldn't matter to me whether it was in the west or the east or the north of the city. But I believe with the extra hours and the extra light that we have now, it's a good time to do it in these months, and then switch back in the fall and stay in house. So that's my opinion, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I also agree. I think that this is Eric speaking here. I agree that the convenience of Zoom is it's definitely it's worth continuing with Zoom. But at the same time, that it would make sense to have maybe one meeting in person, just to get to know everyone, build a personal relationship with everyone, and then continue with Zoom afterwards.
Thank you kindly. Anybody else have a thought on it? Tracy, you wanted to say something? Go ahead.
I'm curious, Kirkochet, if we're allowed to have an off meeting gathering like a barbecue.
Good
So
idea.
technically, according to the Municipal Act, any gathering of committee members over quorum has to be open to the public. So you would be able to do something like that, but you're not allowed to advance or discuss business, which might kind of eliminate the use for this. So I realize we haven't heard from all members yet. I think Councillor Amos and Allison still haven't given us their opinions, but there is a bit of I'm seeing a bit of a trend, but maybe Allison, I'll turn it to you and Councillor Amos, and then I can come with my summary after both of you speak.
Sounds great. I recognize Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. I concur with the group. Gary knows my schedule as much as I know his schedule. So I'm a big proponent of Zoom as well, but I would like to see one meeting over the summer months or the more friendlier months where we have it in person, so we can get to know each other in more of a team environment, if you will. So I'm open and would like to see that, and then the rest of them remain on Zoom.
Okay, and as far as my opinion, I think that's a great idea. One in person and followed up by Zoom. Perhaps the next in person should be our May 6th or May 8th meeting. And because I don't know if we will have an opportunity to meet again in the summer before maybe September. I could be wrong, but we do meet 4 times a year. And so I would support one in person, especially early on in any particular year, in good driving conditions, if that be, and then follow up with the convenience of Zoom. All right, over to you, Clerk O'Shea.
All right, well, I think that's a pretty good consensus. If only everything was that easy at council, then we'd be moving a lot quicker. But yeah, so I would, what I'll do is I will try to see if I can arrange something for the May meeting. Failing that, there still will be a June meeting. The May meeting is a special meeting for a report related specifically to Public Works, but Tracy will still be bringing her regular June meeting report. So just for the committee's benefit, the committee typically meets quarterly in March, June, September, and December. So perhaps we start with one of the May or June meetings in person, and then we can do Zoom from there. And then alter it as we go. But I think I have a good idea of what people would like moving forward, and I can proceed with that.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, I forgot. You're right. June meeting. So maybe that one makes more sense if it gives us a bit more time. Thank you very much. So if we had pretty close to consensus on that, I think you've gotten your direction and on the meeting format going forward. Agenda item number 9, further motions. So I will ask, have there been other motions brought to the attention of the committee that we need to deal with this evening, Clerk O'Shea?
There have not, Madam Chair.
Okay, notices of motions?
There are none of those either.
Okay, I'm going to ask if there's any other business that needs to be discussed or needs to be brought to this committee meeting at this point in time. Seeing none. Correspondence, number 12.
There is.
Correspondence?
Oh, there's none, Madam Chair.
Okay, all righty. So that brings us to the date of our next meeting. And according to the document that's been set out, there's a special meeting scheduled for Monday, May the 8th. The format will be yet determined pending the results or what can be worked out on our earlier conversation. But for now, we know that we mark our calendars with Monday, May 8th. Yes, Clerk O'Shea.
Allison, maybe it's just simplest. Do we want to keep the May meeting as Zoom and then go for June as an in-person? I'll be much more easily able to do that. And then people have some certainty tonight. So maybe we'll approach it from that way.
For me personally, yes. If it's Zoom, it's just a little easier in case I'm scrambling, which I would be.
Yep, we'll approach June as the in-person meeting and I'll let people know when it's booked.
Thank you kindly. That sound good, everybody? Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Jacqueline. We got you in the minutes. Perfect. Thank you very much, everybody. And to Tracy, a lot of good discussion. You'll have chance to ruminate on everything you've heard, especially the new members and those of us who we haven't been together since December. And have at our special meeting, but we can also look forward to the needle moving forward at our June meeting. So 2 meetings within the next within the next 3 months. And yeah, we should be rolling. So thank you everybody for coming out. We really appreciate the importance of obtaining quorum for these kinds of discussions. We don't get to meet that often, so we want to make the most of our time together, especially when we have excellent staff in our clerk and our rural economic development community manager here to support us. And so thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening, and thank you for joining in.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.